If you're talking to clients every day and your closing ratio is stuck, there's a reason. And it's not your script, your IMO, or your leads. There's a psychological process happening in the client's mind. And if you don't guide that process the right way, the sale will collapse every single time. And even if you do everything else right, there is a framework that completely changes that. Once you understand it, that entire conversation becomes predictable and your sales become consistent. Now, I've sold over $1 million of life insurance in my career, and my agency has sold millions every single year the last 5 years. I've trained thousands of agents, and every single top producer uses the same structure. So in this video, I'm gonna break down the 4 psychological pillars that control every life insurance sale. And if you understand these, you'll stop losing sales that you should already be closing. Now, before we get into the 4 pillars, let me give you some context. Because if you're in life insurance, you already know this business is not easy. Most agents fail, not because they don't want it, but because no one has actually taught them how a real life insurance sale actually works. They memorize scripts, they learn products, they try different lead vendors, but none of that matters if you don't understand what your client needs to feel before they say yes. A life insurance sale is not just information, it's psychology. And once you know how to guide the psychology the right way, your conversations flow better, your clients trust you faster, and your closing ratio jumps immediately. So let's get into it. The first pillar is trust. If you don't establish trust early, the sale is dead before it even begins. Life insurance is different from selling anything else. You're asking someone to trust you with their personal information, their financial information, their health history, and their family's future. If they don't trust you, nothing else matters. And trust isn't built by talking fast or sounding smart. Trust is built through professionalism, through transparency, and through tonality. When I hop on a call with one of my clients, one of the first things that I do is send them my credentials. We use something called the verified producer page, which is a landing page that has my picture and all my state licenses on it. The client can go and click on the license that pertains to them, and it'll redirect them straight to the Department of Insurance website where they can verify that I am who I say I am. Most agents don't do this. They send a crappy copy of their license or their business card. So when you do this, you immediately stand out. Your client relaxes and they know exactly who they're talking to. The next part is tonality and presence. Clients don't trust agents who sound nervous or rushed. You need to speak calmly, confidently, slowly, and with intention. Listen more than you speak and answer questions the right way. Clients trust confidence and they trust clarity. And my last point on trust is expertise. And expertise is not about big words. It's about simplifying things so clearly that the client feels understood. If you don't know something, say so. Honesty builds more trust than pretending. Once you have the trust, the client opens up, they tell you the truth, and they let you guide the conversation. That takes us to pillar number 2, emotion. And this is the one that most agents struggle with. Life insurance is an emotional sale. Nobody wakes up excited to talk about death, and nobody wakes up excited to talk about what happens to their family without them. So if you don't get to the emotional reason they're buying, they will always make a logical decision. And logically, people delay. Logically, people say they'll get back to you. Emotion is the only thing that will make them take action. And emotion starts with one simple question. Who would be the beneficiary if something were to happen to you? But the mistake that agents make is that they stop right there. My daughter, my parents, my wife, most agents move on. That's not enough. You need to dig deep. You need to peel back every layer until they can literally picture the moment their family is affected. How old is your daughter? Where does she live? Does she work? Would you need to travel? Where would she stay? Does she have kids? How many days of work will she miss? You ask until the client stops answering with their head and they start answering with their heart. Because when the client visualizes the burden, they understand the value of the policy. People don't buy life insurance because it's cheap. They buy because their family cannot afford for them not to have it. Once you created the emotional reason, you're ready to move on to pillar number 3, doubt. And this is where more agents completely mess up. Doubt does not mean scaring the client. It means helping them understand that life insurance is something that you need to qualify for. Most agents try to reassure the client by saying things like, don't worry, I can for sure get you approved. I can find you something because I work with a bunch of carriers. You think you're helping, but what you're really doing is telling the client that they don't need to act today. And human nature is simple. People want what they can't have. If the client feels like they can get this at any time, there is no urgency to buy insurance today. Now, the correct way to build doubt is by doing a thorough health assessment while you're doing the application. Don't just ask, do you take any medications or do you have any health conditions? Actually dig deep and ask all the health questions until you uncover something that can build doubt in the client's mind. When they tell you they have a specific medication, ask things like how long they've been diagnosed, what medication they're taking, what the dosage is, how often they take it. Not to intimidate them, but to show them that this matters, because it really does. If the client says they're perfectly healthy, don't move on, dig deeper. Start asking about family history or anything around them that can let them get that little bit of doubt that you need in order to be able to have that pillar in place so you can move on to the rest of the application. Once the client realizes that the coverage is not guaranteed and that the approval isn't for certain, all of a sudden they realize how valuable this policy is. They shift their mindset from, I can for sure get approved, to hopefully I get approved. And that is going to take you directly into pillar number 4, which is urgency. And urgency is where the sale actually happens. Urgency is not pressure. Urgency comes from reality. And the reality is simple. Today is the youngest and healthiest your client will ever be. They are one doctor visit away from not qualifying, one medication away from getting rated up, one diagnosis away from getting declined. And once you've built trust, once you've created emotion, once you've introduced doubt, urgency comes naturally. You tie urgency back to emotion. You told me you want to make sure that your daughter is protected, but if anything changes with her health, the price will not be the same. You tie urgency back to doubt. Based on what you've shared, you're pre-qualified today, but that is based on today's information. Then you lead the conversation. So here's what we need to do. The next step is to submit your application so the carrier can lock in your eligibility and your rate. The one thing that you do not do is say, let's just submit the application to see if you get approved today. That is a chargeback waiting to happen. To be clear, you're not selling the approval, you're selling the policy. Urgency is not about pressure, urgency is about clarity. And once clarity is there, action becomes the obvious choice. So let's recap. Pillar 1 is trust. Pillar 2 is emotion. Pillar 3 is doubt. And pillar 4 is urgency. When you stack these 4 together, trust, emotion, doubt, and urgency, you will close almost every sale. If you're not doing these right now, you're leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table. This is the framework that I used to sell well over $1 million of life insurance premium on my own personal pen, and to build an agency that sells millions of dollars in premiums every single year. Now, if you find this valuable, make sure you hit the subscribe button. I drop new videos every single week breaking down the systems, mindset, and strategies that top producers are using to be able to win in this industry. Now, take this framework, apply it to your next conversation, and start seeing how fast your closing ratio will start climbing. Thank you for watching.